Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another At America TV event with me, Jasmine, tonight. I hope you all are doing great. So for those of you joining us tonight for the first time, At America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center, and our mission is to provide a space for young Indonesians to learn more about the United States. We have temporarily moved to a digital platform so you can still enjoy all of our events at the comfort of your own home. So for tonight, we will be discussing cybersecurity, safe and smart online. But before we begin in all of At America's events, as usual, I would like to tell you our social media quiz for today. So the question is, which one of these cyber attacks is the most common? Is it A, ransomware, B, phishing, C, DDoS attack, or D, malware? You can participate in our social media quiz by commenting on our social media platform. And for those of you who got the answer correctly, you will get a live shout out from us at the end of the program. And also for those of you on Instagram, don't forget to make an Insta story and tag us at ATAmerica to share with everybody that you're having a great time with us tonight. All right, without further ado, I would like to invite for the opening remarks and our moderator for tonight from the U.S. Embassy Jakarta, Tamra Greig, Digital Economical Officer. Please, Ibu Tamra.
Hi, good evening, Selamat Malam. It's a distinct pleasure to welcome you to tonight's cybersecurity event. My name is Tamra Greig. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. I am the Digital Economy Officer at the U.S. Embassy, and I cover cybersecurity. I would like to give a special thanks to our participants from the American Quarter at University of Muhammadiyah in Yogyakarta. Thank you so much for supporting our event, and we're happy to have you here with us today. Tonight, our expert speakers will discuss cybersecurity risks associated with our highly connected environment. They'll talk about trends and current threats in Southeast Asia, as well as mitigation strategies. We are delighted tonight to have with us Dr. Awaludin Marwan. He's a senior lecturer on cyber law and cybersecurity law, and also data protection law at Bhayangkara University in Jakarta. And we also have from the United States, Melissa Hathaway, who's a senior advisor at Harvard University's Kennedy School's Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs. We sincerely appreciate their time and willingness to join us for our program tonight. As you might know, we just concluded another month of National Cybersecurity Awareness. This was actually our 17th year, and this year we focused on raising awareness about the importance of cybersecurity across the globe, ensuring that all citizens have the resources they need to be safer and more secure online. This year's theme was Do Your Part, Be Cyber Smart. It encourages all individuals and organizations to take responsibility for protecting their part of cyberspace, stressing personal accountability and the importance of taking proactive steps to enhance cybersecurity. And we'll hear more from our speakers on why that is so important. Additional resources on how you could stay protected either through your business, university, or for your personal life as you're teleworking or teleeducating yourself can be found at our www.cisa.gov. You can also Google National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and there's a lot of tools available there and information and updates. So I strongly encourage all participants to listen carefully to our experts and immediately go home and share what you learned today with your family and colleagues and coworkers. You will hear our speakers tell you how COVID-19 pandemic has increased our vulnerability to cyber attacks. That's actually very important, as we've seen, we've seen a dramatic increase in hackers taking advantage of the COVID-19 situation. Some of us, our defenses have been down as we focus on the health and welfare of our families. And hackers know this. They've used the pandemic to spread malware and launch phishing attacks, especially in Southeast Asia. So we should not, we have to be careful and not assume that our technologies that we're utilizing are secure by default. Many of the devices we use have security built in, but it's up to the user to activate that security and use those devices in a secure way. So I'd like to turn it over to our first presenter, but before I do, I just want to remind the audience that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. We're all a target, and if we know that, that can go a long ways to keeping us safe. So I'll introduce our first speaker, Dr. Awaludin Marwan. As I said, he's a senior lecturer on cyber law, cybersecurity law, and data protection law at Bhayangkara University in Jakarta. He also started a non-governmental organization called the Institute for Digital Law and Society. It's a research and publisher of works on cybersecurity, and they also have publications on the bug hunter community. So you can look that up as well. Dr. Awal works closely with the Indonesian National Police, the Indonesian Cyber and Crypto Agency, BSSN, the Ministry of ICT or Kominfo, and he often organizes lectures and training workshop and other capacity building programs for the government of Indonesia, as well as serving as an advisor to the parliament on a number of policy issues. He's a member of the Indonesian Cybersecurity Forum and Digital Forensics Association. He's an active member of the ASEAN Privacy Scholar Network, along with colleagues from Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, and the United States. So without further introduction, I would like to turn over the microphone to Dr. Awal. Thank you, Dr. Awal.
Thank you, Tamra, for introducing me. And this is honor to me to be here with you, especially also want to learn more from Melissa about the cybersecurity policy. And I would like to share my experience and my knowledge about the cybersecurity policy and ecosystem in Indonesia. If we look at in the global view, we have a lot of data that showing the cybersecurity cost is very huge, like 3.86 million of average total cost every incident. This very huge number of money if we forget the cybersecurity. And also we have 197 numbers of data breach incident every day. And we also have 27.9% of probability recurring data breach in the next 2 years. This is the data from the global cost of data breach report by the IBM in 2018. In the Indonesian context, we found several data from the ICT, Ministry of ICT, such as 14,000 report of online fraud. This check reckoning is platform from the one who suffer from online fraud. They can make a report to this platform. So they collect a report from the society, and this report from years 2019. And Indonesian police also received a criminal report about the cyber crimes. Every year of years, the reports contain approximately 2,000. So it's getting higher over time concerning the report on the cyber crimes. And we also received a lot of news. Just a few days ago, we have news that the famous e-commerce in Indonesia also got data breach, and the hacker also sold the data in the dark website. So the cybercrime in Indonesia is already in our life, and we face every day now. And Indonesia also has data from the Indonesian Crypto and Cyber Agency. We are number seconds to suffer from the cyber attack. So in the first country is India, and we are number seconds. So we receive a lot of cyber attack from outside or inside of Indonesia territory. With a number of cyber attack and cyber crimes, unfortunately, we don't have any sufficient legal framework to cover the problem of cybersecurity and cybercrime. The articles written by Thomas Patterson entitled Indonesian Cyber Expansions, a Double-Edged Sword, he stipulate that full legislation and cybersecurity awareness in Indonesia encourage a lot of problem of cyber crime and cyber incident. So first, the problem in the legislations, and the second about the cybersecurity awareness. So this is very important things that we have to emphasize and highlight, that the legislation have to be finished soon. We already the bill of the Cyber Resilient and the Cybersecurity Act, but it's already postponed for next years, and we hopefully the next year we have the new one, because we about late compared to our neighborhood country. And we have several cybersecurity policy, even we don't have the cybersecurity regulation yet. So the specific cyber security regulation is needed, but several regulations related to cybersecurity helps now to cover and to answer the problem of the cybercrime and the cybersecurity, such as the ICT law number 11 of 2009, which revised law number 90 of 2016. This law mentioning about the cybercrime. So if we see the Convention of Cybercrime in Budapest 2001, almost several articles related to these conventions. So we have the cyber police in the Indonesian National Police, which investigate the case based on this law. And we have a presidential decree, this about establishment of the Indonesian Cyber and Crypto Agency. Before this presidential decree, we don't have any specific institution who has responsibility to cover the cybersecurity issues. But since the president elections appointed the Indonesian Crypto and Cyber Agency, this body have a responsibility to prepare, analyze, and establish the infrastructure and oversight and help the digital economy to empower and improve the cybersecurity. And also under laws related to cybersecurity, like the telecommunication law and money laws. And I would like to show you the basic information of the stakeholder of Indonesian cybersecurity ecosystem. First, the most important in Indonesia Cyber Crypto Agency, I would call it BSSN. So in the BSSN, we found the certification for the cybersecurity professions. And they also provide, and they call it a book bounty program for a hacker community to help the digital startup to find the security hole or bug to solve to improve the security systems. And then we have Minister of Defense, Indonesian Army, Indonesian State Intelligence Agency, and of course Indonesian National Police who investigate the cybercrime, and also we have Indonesian Minister of ICT. This is for the government side. In the private side, we have Indonesian Computer Emergency Response Team, CERT. We have two CERT, one ID CERT and the other ID CERT team. So this is a community also based on the community, professional, industry, university, and a lot of sectors come to the Indonesian Computer Emergency Response Teams in this organization. And we have a university who provide also the program on cybersecurity, cyber law. This is also very important to provide the human resource, also the research. We have the cybersecurity provider, like a company who focus on the penetration testing or install some software to help their client to improve the cybersecurity system. And we also have ethical hacker communities to help the cybersecurity ecosystem better. Because as we know, there are two sides of the hacker community. One side is ethical hacker community who has the kind of the ethical norms to report a bug, and the others we know the term of the black hat hackers who have motivations to attack the a lot of things and to make a broke a lot of the digital ecosystem. This is the several activity that very important for the cybersecurity, like penetration testings, MSS, managed security service, and to install SIEM, the security information and event management. Because we, as we know that in the real criminal, they have the bodyguard, but in the virtual, we need the virtual bodyguard, which make the digital owner or digital asset safe. So SIEM is very important to monitor every single potential cyber attack. The problem is we find the lack of cybersecurity awareness for digital startup. They focus on marketing and tech development, and they forget the cybersecurity. As we know, a lot of minister and agency provide fund for people and millennials building the startup, but they only focus on the tractions and marketing and to develop AI and another technology, but they forget about the cybersecurity. That's very important. And the last thing, after the technology is safe, we need to think about to educate the users. The social engineering, I would like to say, is the weakness side of the digital ecosystem. After the technology is safe, a lot of penetration happens, penetration testing happen, and they already installed SIEM, and it seemed that they can detect the cyber attack, but once the users lost their password and give the OTP and the credential code, this is very very problematic. So to educate the people, the user is very important. It's very basic, but this is have to do continuously. I think that's all for me. I stop from this and thank you. I give him back to Tamra. Thank you, Tamara, and
thank you so much, Dr. Awal. We really appreciate your presentation, and hopefully our viewers out there were able to learn a little bit more about the ecosystem here in Indonesia. And certainly the point that you brought up that, you know, one of our greatest vulnerabilities is our users and the way users are using our technology. One thing I did want to remind everybody, if you have any questions at any time during the presentation, you can use the chat function, whether it's with Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube, and our e-guides will be sure to get those questions to me that I can ask our presenters, either for Dr. Awal or for our next presenter, Melissa Hathaway, at the end. So please ask any question. No question is off limits. Both of our presenters are experts and they can answer your questions. So now, moving on, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Melissa Hathaway. She, as I said, is a senior advisor for Harvard University's Kennedy School Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs. Melissa Hathaway has actually served in 2 presidential administrations, spearheading the cyberspace policy review for President Barack Obama and leading the comprehensive national cybersecurity initiative for President George W. Bush. She built a coalition from within the executive branch and established an unprecedented partnership with Congress to obtain bipartisan support for addressing cybersecurity priorities. She developed and created a unified cross-agency budget submission for fiscal year 2008 and 2009 to 13, assembling disparate funding sources into a coherent integrated program. Hathaway stood up the Cybersecurity Office with our national security staff and set the expectation and pace to move the United States towards a stronger, more resilient information and communications infrastructure. At the conclusion of her government service, she received the National Intelligence Reform Medal and the National Intelligence Meritorious Unit Citation Medal in recognition for her achievements. After her government service, Hathaway established Hathaway Global Strategies, LLC. She is a leading expert in cybersecurity policy and cybersecurity and brings a multidisciplinary and multi-institutional perspective to strategic consulting and strategy formulation for the public and private sector clients. She served on the board of directors for 2 public companies and 3 nonprofit organizations. And as a strategic advisor to a number of public and private companies, Hathaway brings her clients a unique combination of policy and technical expertise, as well as boardroom expertise that allows her to help clients better understand the intersection of government policy and developing technological and industry needs. So I would like to introduce Melissa, who will talk a little bit more about cybersecurity in our region and why all of us should care about it. Please do ask questions. I think there's a lot of good information being talked about today with our speakers, so we hope that you take the opportunity to ask both of our experts any question that you like. Use the chat function. Thank you. Over to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Tamra. Good evening, everybody. And it's a great honor to be here tonight with you and to share the platform with Dr. Awal. I think it's quite great that we have these virtual platforms that allow me to contribute from over here in the United States. And I look forward to the opportunity to be able to travel to Indonesia and come see Jakarta. I'm going to build on what Dr. Awal originally started, and I don't know how many people online actually know that the internet turned 51 last week on October 29th. October 29th, 1969 was the first transmission of data between universities over and through the internet. And the world really wasn't planning on having the internet become the backbone of global commerce, to be the platform that we're going to use to communicate with each other, to move data, services, capital across borders. But it has become the backbone of our critical services and infrastructures over the last 20 to 30 years. The pandemic showed us, though, the importance of the internet for our countries to keep operating, for our companies to keep building and being able to do whatever the service or product that they are able to develop. It's keeping our schools connected and our students online. And overall, I think it's keeping the society sane, because we can, in fact, see each other over these platforms, and we can, in fact, share knowledge and share community. And that is going to require us to continue to invest in telecommunications and internet services. They have to be affordable, they have to be available, and they have to be reliable. I know that Tamra had issues earlier this evening on with her internet in her neighborhood. I personally had issues with the internet in my neighborhood just a few days ago. And so we have to actually ensure that it is available, it is reliable. And maybe more importantly, we have in the region for Southeast Asia, and even here in some places in the United States, we need to make sure that it's that you can in fact afford it and have that stable internet connection. Internet penetration matters. You are increasing your internet penetration in Indonesia. You're just about 60% of the population has access to the internet, but that 40% is still the digital divide. Other countries in the region have even less connectivity, averaging about 40% internet penetration or internet connectivity, which means our governments need to invest more to make that available so we can in fact keep society going as we're moved offline or moving online as we moved home to our homes. We made a great leap into cyberspace this year in 2020, and it really required us to think through innovation differently, adopting these new technologies. I can't imagine of using Zoom a year ago or a year and a half ago, or all of these different platforms that we have to use in order to keep things going. We've moved to work from home and learn from home, and that has increased our use of these collaboration tools over 1,200% since the March timeframe. And we're starting to see the adaptation of new technologies and new platforms in order to keep our lives normal during these abnormal areas. We're starting to use telemedicine, wearable medical devices, using remote diagnostic tools to reduce the need to go to the doctor or to the hospital. Again, using these technologies in order to advance society. We're also seeing digital transformation underway, where countries are starting to dedicate a fair amount of funds, like in South Korea, almost $500 billion in order to develop the uncontactless industries. So when we get on the other end of this pandemic, that we'll have new industries and we'll have new technologies in order to simplify our life and eliminate our need to touch surfaces and interact more with the technology. Yet we face a lot of challenges. With the technology, there's so many opportunities to advance society, to modernize and transform our economies, but there are still challenges underway. And as Dr. Awal said, there are many people, criminals, nation states, et cetera, that are taking advantage of the vulnerabilities in these technologies. So these disruptive and destructive activities are increasing. You're seeing the increase of stealing of sensitive data, our personal data, our intellectual property. Unfortunately, we're seeing the compromise of the medical research going into the vaccines and knocking those medical facilities offline when they need to be online through either ransomware or distributed denial of service attacks. We're seeing the disruption of critical services and infrastructures and businesses, again, through distributed denial of service attacks, ransomware, malicious software. Hackers are breaking into our financial institutions and stealing money and cryptocurrency exchanges. And then, yes, we're seeing the erosion of confidence in our democratic processes through propaganda, through disinformation, through different influence campaigns of the international narratives that are undermining our view of democracy and sharing disinformation. And then finally, we're seeing the internet used to recruit terrorists and to actually plan for and direct violent attacks, as you've seen in France and elsewhere in the world this last few weeks. The numbers also don't look very good. I'm just going to share this year's information. This year, since the pandemic, we've seen over a 700% increase in ransomware attacks. 150+% increase in distributed denial of service attacks, meaning that it's knocking your business offline when it needs to be online, or knocking you as an individual offline when you need to be online. And then we're seeing a 600% increase in Internet of Things attacks. The Internet of Things are these connected devices like your cell phone or the wearable medical device. And we're starting to see those vulnerable devices be used to create and conduct harm. In Southeast Asia, we're seeing Interpol recently talk to how the cyber criminals are taking advantage. You're seeing 14% of fake news and the disinformation in the region. You're seeing an increase in malicious domains. Malicious domains are where you go to an internet site and it's not actually the internet site that you wanted to go to. You've been redirected to some place to actually steal your information. Malicious software and ransomware are locking up your computers or destroying your devices. And then the phishing scams, overall fraud, where you click on a link or you're tricked into doing something you don't want to do. These are the things that we're seeing in the region this year alone, just in 2020, taking advantage of the region, taking advantage of our trust in the overall technology. So you have to ask, how and why did we get here? We got here because our digital environment is really insecure. Over the last 20 to 30 years, we have connected all of our critical service and infrastructures to the internet and the connected these devices, but the underlying technologies, the information communication technologies, have been deployed with the known vulnerabilities, and they are insecure. To give you a perspective, those products come with the principle of field it fast and fix it later. Patch Tuesday then leads to Vulnerable Wednesday. And that Vulnerable Wednesday is a problem for us as individuals, us as businesses, us as governments. Just to give you a perspective of the patch cadence just for two different vendors, Microsoft has over 1,000 vulnerabilities patched just this year alone, of which 15% are critical. Critical meaning I can exploit that vulnerability and come and steal your personal information. I can steal your banking information. I can steal your intellectual property, etc. And then Oracle has over 1,600 vulnerabilities that they've addressed this year. Again, 1/3 of which are critical. Oracle is a common business software. So this is where our businesses and our governments become even more vulnerable that we have to worry about. It takes a long time to make these patches. Usually 30 days is the best case scenario. And so during that 30 days, I can find all of those vulnerable unpatched systems. They are easy to find over and through the internet, and the tools are readily accessible, again, over the internet to cause harm. It only takes a few seconds to gain access to your vulnerable device or that vulnerable infrastructure. And as I said, it takes days to patch them. 30 days is best practice for our businesses and our governments. 60 to 90 days for most organizations, especially when it comes to Oracle or Citrix. And then if you're a small business, generally you don't patch, and that becomes even more of a problem for the overarching cyber ecosystem. So what's at risk and what would you lose? How do you think about the problem? Well, first, the global financial system is experiencing a wide range of malicious activities. And so money really is at risk. Our personal data, our personal health information have a monetary value in the underground economy and the dark web, but they also have a value to countries who are trying to advance their research for life-saving drugs like the vaccine or for cancer. And so you see the widespread theft of this information to advance either economically for criminals or for a nation state's ability to address different needs. We're also seeing the theft of intellectual property at scale. This is one of the things that we're worried about most in the United States, where our corporations who have invested billions of dollars in research and development have their trade secrets illegally copied, and it's given to advance other countries' companies and their interests along the way. This is one of the key problems that we've been dealing with for more than a decade here in the United States. We're also seeing significant business disruption, again, through ransomware, censorship, denial of service attacks that are disrupting the free flow of goods, services, data, and capital across borders. And then finally, we're seeing destructive malicious software. It's being used against corporations and critical infrastructures that are actually destroying them and bringing them offline again when they need to be online. This is for water distribution. This is for power distribution. This is for critical citizen-facing services that we can no longer afford to just leave vulnerable. We have to, as countries and as corporations, to start to build resilience into the system. Cybersecurity, safe and smart online, is about resilience. And it's also about awareness, and it's about what you and I can do about it. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about what you and I can start to do about it. First, we have to raise awareness and develop skills from the youngest generation to the oldest generation, because we are all using the technology equally, especially now during COVID, when we're so more dependent upon these technologies to keep our lives normal in an abnormal time. Next, we need to keep a clean machine. Use the most current version of the software. Patch your machines at home. Patch Tuesday happens once a month for Microsoft. Patch Tuesday happens on a quarterly basis for Cisco, for Oracle, for any device you have at home. You need to keep it current. Even my Apple phone gets updates on a pretty regular basis. So keep your clean machine. If you don't have the current software, I guarantee you it's vulnerable and somebody can gain access to your personal information. Use complex passwords. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is not a good idea. And neither is admin for your password. It's really important to use complex passwords that are long, that use special characters. And it's even better if you actually use a phrase. Sometimes if you take even a verse of a song that is one of your favorite songs, that would be a good way of having a complex password. You should also use multi-factor authentication and biometrics wherever possible. What's a multi-factor authentication? Well, the first part of authentication is usually your name and password for the device. But then a second authentication mechanism could be a code that's sent to your cell phone, or your fingerprint, or a facial scan. There are multiple different ways that multi-factor authentication is being used with the technology. It's important because it's easy to guess a password, but it's not easy to replicate your fingerprint. You need to back up your data often. I can't begin to tell you how many people are losing data that haven't backed because they haven't backed it up. When was the last time at home you backed up your photos or your key financial information? If it's been more than a week or more than 2 weeks, you need to, tonight when we end this program, go back up your information. I back up my information on a regular basis, and I even have a clock on my computer that tells me if I haven't done it recently. This also goes for businesses. Businesses are not doing a good job of backing up their data, so when they get a ransomware event, they are not able to bring their systems up from their backup systems, so this becomes a problem. You should dedicate some devices for your sensitive transactions, especially your financial transactions that are not commingled with family use. If your device or your computer is being used for video games or for other things, again, it will have, more likely than not, is vulnerable. So if you can and you can afford it, you should dedicate certain items in your house for the sensitive transactions and certainly for your businesses. You should opt out of it's the rule of least privilege. Opting out means most of the time when you download an application, it's opting you in to sharing your geolocation data. It's opting you into the cookies that are tracing how you're searching on the internet. It's opting you in to give away your information. So it's important that when you actually download an app, that first you've gone to a trusted source, usually like an Apple App Store or the Android, or the actual manufacturer's website and directly, and then make sure that you understand what is all the information that you're giving away with that application. Is that really what you want to do? So it's better to opt out than to opt in. And again, the applications are all designed to opt you into everything. So opt out as much as you can. Next, you need to lock your Wi-Fi and don't use the default settings. I can't begin to tell you how many people that I can just, when you start to use your cell phone and you're looking for the closest Wi-Fi settings, or at the coffee shop, or even in the neighborhood, I can see who's got a locked down Wi-Fi and who doesn't have a lockdown Wi-Fi. If it's not locked down, that's like lock your house. You lock the front door of your house. So lock your Wi-Fi like you lock your house, or like you lock your car, or anything else that's important to you. Because once I get into that unlocked Wi-Fi, I can see every digital thing that's happening in your home or in your business. As you're conducting more and more online shopping, because we're at home, you need to really think about certain things. So think before you click. There's a lot of ads that are encouraging you to click on a link, but a lot of those things, they can be spoofed, or and this is where fraud and crime is happening. So don't be tricked into clicking on the ad as you're shopping for something on the main page. Don't go to an alternative page. Consider your payment options. I know you have, whether it's Alipay or Google Pay, or use a particular credit card instead of a debit card. You don't want to give the criminals direct access to your full-up bank account. So protect yourself. Credit cards are an easy way to protect yourself, or using the online payment options is also a way to protect yourself. And then again, watch what you give away. As you're doing this online shopping, they are actually collecting information on your transactions. So, and it's sort of that advertising. If you liked this, you might want to buy this too. Just be careful of how you're being profiled online in that online shopping. You'll see that we'll be online shopping for the foreseeable future. And this is one of the contactless innovations that's happening right now in the industry. So we need to be particularly careful about all of the information and the fraud that can happen in that online environment. You need to also, as you're starting to think of your home networked environment, you need to know what is connected and who's connected to your home network environment. So just like I said earlier, lock your Wi-Fi like you lock your house. You also need to be aware of what else is connected in your house, and when was the last time that software was updated. There are a number of infected devices that could be from your router to your heating and cooling device to the smart light bulbs that are coming in with the smart cities. Make sure that you understand what is in the house, what's connected, and how current is the software, and make sure that that environment is as secure as you possibly can make it. Then also, as you're using more and more social media, whether it's Facebook or it's Instagram or any of the other social media platforms, you need to think about what you post. Don't put too much information up on the web. It'll help minimize your digital exposure. And if you are really curious, you should Google yourself or do a search of what information can you find about yourself on the open web, or about your children or your family. And you might actually be unhappy with what is available and about the information on you. So knowing what's in that public domain concerning you and your family is really important. And again, it can help you understand why posting and why minimizing and why opting out become important in the overall future of your digital contribution to society. And then finally, as you think about disposing your electronic devices, there's a lot of information on those electronic devices. Make sure that you don't just throw it in the garbage. Make sure that it actually gets either recycled or completely melted down, because if you don't want that information to get out, you want to make sure that the electronic device is properly destroyed, completely destroyed, so that your information can't get out. Finally, at work. At work, you need to identify the business critical systems, assets, and data, and protect them like they matter. I can't tell you how many corporations can't answer the question of what are their business critical systems, the most important assets, and their data sets and flows. So they can't protect them like they matter because they don't know. Second, I think businesses really need to elevate digital risks to the enterprise risk governance. It's not just an IT issue. All businesses are digital today, and so all businesses need to think about digital risk as enterprise risk and measure and monitor that value at risk and the EBITDA at risk, the money, the operational costs, the capital costs, the financial, the operational and legal costs that are associated with those vulnerabilities, and know how resilient and prepared you are. If you got hit with a ransomware tomorrow, how quickly could you recover? Could you recover from backup tapes? And if not, what are you going to do to become more prepared? This whole last month, October, and every day should be all about becoming safe and smart online. And this digital transformation is now, we're living it. And so be safe and smart online. Thank you so much. And I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for that great presentation. I hope everybody was taking good notes and on some of the tips. We have a question for Dr. Awal. If you're still there, Dr. Awal, could we ask you a question?
Yes.
You mentioned this concept of bug bounty. Could you explain what that is? What is a bug bounty?
Bug bounty is kind of the invitation for ethical hacker to check whether the digital platform has vulnerability or not. If they found a bug or security hole or vulnerability, the hacker should report properly without making editing, delete, or improving the code. So after the report sent to the digital apps, and then the company who has the digital app make or give a reward to the hacker.
Okay, thank you. I think there's some, if anybody else is listening and interested, that's another item that you could Google. There's a lot of really interesting stories on different bug bounties that companies have. Melissa, we have another question related to privacy. We talked a lot about COVID and the pandemic and its impact on the acceleration of digitization, especially in Indonesia. But when we're considering privacy, and Awal, you might have some comments on this as well, and we're talking about telemedicine. When we're talking about COVID, governments need to trace infections and do contact tracing. Maybe you could give some comment on, as Indonesia is considering their privacy bill, how do you maintain privacy but also keep people from getting COVID?
Yeah, I think that the contact tracing apps are important because they can actually give you a sense of, from a time and spatial aspect of, were you in a location that had exposure in order to help protect society. But that is not giving away your actual health information. It's so I like to separate it as like one set of information, the geolocation data, and the tracing and geospatial is the thing that is important, and then the protecting your data is a separate and distinct thing. So I think that they can in fact coexist, but it's really important that as the contact tracing applications, they really do need to be thought of and tested to make sure that they're not vulnerable. We've seen a number of the actual applications expose personal data beyond the geospatial data in South Korea and India and elsewhere. And so as we're going to adopt the technology, we should make sure the technology is not vulnerable to exploitation by criminals and doesn't collect too much information, or if it's collecting data, that is under the proper data protection and regimes that are specified by the government and or the region.
Do you have anything to add, Awal?
Yeah, it's same with Malaysia. In the privacy law, we have the principle that we call limited data protection, limited data privacy collection. So they have to not too much collecting data, only the specific ones such as the geolocations, but the other data, the apps should not crawl the data. So this is depending of the purpose. If the collecting data can answer the purpose which the apps establish, that's more than enough. So the things is the apps are not only want to collect the geolocations, but want to collect the picture, the video, and the contact numbers. This is too much. And then the most important is to be transparent that this application already secure or not. For instance, they have to open book bounty to allow a lot of researcher on the security to test the cybersecurity system. If they found the vulnerability, they have to give a reward. Reward not only money, but also the certificate mentioned that they helps the apps. It's meaningful for the hacker, especially the ethical hacker.
Okay, thank you for that. And in Indonesia, we have a very high digital literacy. I think a good portion of the population is connected either through a mobile device or a fixed internet. So our internet penetration is high as well. What do you think, Awal, maybe you can answer first. What do you think the best step for the government to educate safe cybersecurity? You know, given that so many people are using the internet, what should the government do to keep everybody safe in Indonesia?
Yeah, the government should use social media to spread information how to secure the device, because the mobile phone is higher than the populations. So the mobile phone number in Indonesia is more than 300 millions mobile phones. It means that one man can have more than one mobile phone in Indonesia. So we are Indonesian, is we social life social society. It means that the platform like a social media, it's very meaningful for us. That's why social media user is very high in Indonesia. To use YouTube, Facebook, Instagram to campaign more the cybersecurity awareness is very important.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Awal. I think that it's really important to have information campaigns of how to secure your device. Some of the kind of the key top 10 things that I shared in my presentation. There's a number of different ways you can do it, whether it's over social media or in the school programs, you know, K through 12 or the elementary school, poster campaigns, comic books, you know, there are multiple different channels that you can use to get out the knowledge or just start sharing knowledge and of how to stay safe and smart online. And it shouldn't just be the month of October. It should be a regular and consistent and persistent campaign of every day of that there should be a message. So just like we're right now, the importance of washing your hands, the importance of keeping your distance, there should be something very similar for how to keep your device clean online and how to protect yourself online.
Sort of a related question, Melissa, if you'll take this one first. So we all know piracy in Southeast Asia is quite common. There's a lot of Indonesians have been used to getting media and apps and things for free. And so it's very, very likely that a lot of Indonesians with their multiple phones pick the free app instead of the paid for app. And how do you really know if software and devices are legitimate? When you mentioned you talked about the need to do constant updates to your software, but in this society, we see so many updates and so many apps for free. Maybe you could comment on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, first of all, you should only download the app if it's coming from a trusted app store, like, the App Store for Apple. All of those apps that are on their store, free or not free, have all been tested for their security, et cetera. There's high standards for Apple, and Google is pretty similar. And we as governments are starting to put more requirements on those app stores to make sure they are legitimate apps that are being put on the store and that they're also secure. But I guess the main thing I would say to the primary question is free doesn't make it bad. But you should realize that we have a saying in the United States from one of our famous forefathers, from Ben Franklin, that there's no such thing as a free lunch. When you get a free app, you're giving something away that's of value to that app or the company, and that's usually your personal information. It could be your location data. It could be your contacts. And so this is why you need to start to opt out, because you can opt out of some of the things that you would not normally be opted into on those apps. And but again, if it's free, it means that your information is what's being used to be monetized by that company or by that app. And so you need to be very mindful of what information you're giving away.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, because a lot of times what we think is free, we're actually paying for with our personal information, which is of value. So it's right. Never a free lunch. Question for you, Melissa. You mentioned the ways to minimize digital risk, and one of them is not using a debit card, instead using a credit card. And this person from Facebook is concerned that if they use too much of their credit card, they'll have a lot of personal debt and bad credit score. So I guess you can comment on your thoughts on that question.
Yeah, so the reason you don't use a debit card is the debit card is a direct link to your bank account. And if the debit card gets stolen, illegally copied or used, it's not a minimum threshold. Like, they can actually empty your bank account, and that becomes the risk. So that's why you use a credit card, because a credit card, if you get a fraudulent or illegal transaction using your credit card, you're usually only liable for $50 or maybe not liable for anything. And so I look at it as you minimize your risk by using the credit card versus a debit card, because there's a limit to how much money you could possibly lose or not lose at all from a credit card versus the debit card. So I think that's the biggest thing for that. Debit is you could lose everything. Credit, you have a minimum threshold.
Thank you. Next question is for Dr. Awal. In recent years, we have seen an explosion in the use of biometrics. There are two sides of the coin about biometrics. It's useful, accurate, and reliable, but privacy is also a concern. How is the regulation currently in Indonesia on biometrics?
Unfortunately, we don't have a Data Privacy Act till now. We still discussing in this year's to finalize the Data Privacy Act, including separations between the sensitive data such as biometric, genetic informations, and the other sensitive informations, and another ordinary data privacy. And we need to make sure that the biometric software or tools to be collected by the company, such as the company who use a biometric data should certified by should be certified by the government, especially like Indonesian crypto or cyber agency. So not all the government can provide the or can collect the biometric data, but only few who got certification and license.
Okay, there was another question on the disruption of telemedicine and medical services. I think that concept here is still a bit new, although with COVID, I think there are more and more people participating in telemedicine, which basically is that you're connecting with your doctor through the internet and you're walking through diagnosis through the internet, and you might even be prescribed medicine through the internet as well. For Indonesia, what concerns are you seeing for telemedicine services? Maybe Dr. Awal, you could take that one first, and then Melissa, you could talk about maybe for the region.
Yeah, first, the hospital and the healthcare provider should take care to make digital transformations. Of course, it's really needed to build or develop the software to connect the doctor to patients or the doctor with the management. But it is very important to secure the data also, because the health data is sensitive data. If we have a wrong data, it's very damaging for patient because this is related to life. And the most important is to educate the officers of the hospital. Giving the data protection officers is very important. Data protection officer also mentioned in the Bill of Data Privacy Act. We discuss how to make the DPO, data protection officer at hospital, as the specific professions. Not all people can become the data protection officer in the hospital, but only several people who train and certified can collect, analyze, and save, and also delete the data in the hospital.
Yeah, I think I'm building on that. I think I would say the first thing is you have to have reliable and available internet in order to actually enable telemedicine. I think the second thing is just like Dr. Awal said, you need to then have a secure connection so that as we're having this communication over the internet, that it can't just be intercepted or listened to. So you have to have a secure platform, right? A secure connection from patient to doctor to keep that patient confidentiality, and that will be important. I think the third thing is that you have to, as Dr. Awal said, you have to have the ability to secure the data. So it's not just secure the communication so that I have that confidentiality, but if I were to share, like I have an app on my phone for EKG for my heart, and I share that data with my doctor and over and through the internet, then my doctor needs to be able to save that someplace because that's protected health information. And so secure that data of the transaction. And then, but I think as an underlying aspect, as we continue to do more telehealth and telemedicine, you need to have, again, a general awareness raising of both the medical professional community and the actual customers or the patients of the importance of why this has to be, how do we keep things confidential? How do we keep things, how do we keep the data protected? And again, that goes back to the original awareness campaign. And then finally, I think what's really important, at least what we're seeing here in the United States, is that our hospitals have not done a very good job, and I would say maybe around the world, of keeping their IT backbone, their digital services and infrastructures up to date with software upgrades and et cetera. So many of the hospitals are being ransomwared. and being knocked offline. And we had 400 hospitals just a few weeks ago offline for more than 2 weeks, and that becomes a national health crisis when your hospitals cannot actually deliver health services, period. And it makes it even more of an emergency during a pandemic when you have so many citizens who are sick and need health services. So that requires an entire IT refresh at these hospitals. It requires a private-public partnership so the government can help these hospitals understand why they need to start doing these things, and overall protecting their ability to deliver service.
Okay, great. Maybe we could jump to some of the current cyber challenges in Indonesia and what your post-COVID predictions might be for cybersecurity. Are we going to continue to potentially see those numbers increase? Do you think we've learned our lesson and will do better as users? What are some of the predictions for the future? Maybe Melissa, you want to start with that one?
Well, I think that as we become more connected, which is happening right now through the pandemic, that if there's not a concurrent education and awareness raising, that we will likely make ourselves more vulnerable on at the end of this than. And so we need to, as businesses, as governments, as individuals, we need to focus on resilience, and that gets back to keep your software up to date, back your data up, and be more aware of your dependence on these technologies, and so that you can use them securely, and we can in fact advance and move forward with a more digital future.
Dr. Awal, could you also comment on what do you see are some of the post-COVID predictions?
Post-COVID prediction, to me, I think the number of hackers will be increased because a lot of children stay at home and they connecting to internet. They learn how to make penetration testing, and they will try a lot of code. So the number of hackers with more talent and motivations will be increased, and we need to organize them and encourage them to be ethical hacker than black hat hackers. So we have to convince them that attacking the platform and steal the data is criminal. But if you just research the platform, and after you got the bug, and you have to submit the report properly to the owner, that's a good hacker. And in the past, defacement to change the screen is very proud of the hacker, but that's the past. Now you cannot be a great hacker if you have a lot of certifications. If you help the platform, you got the certifications, you will be accepted in the market as a professional later on in the future. So you cannot be a bright and a great hacker in the future. But if you destroy the platform, and you kind of arrested by the police like that.
That's actually goes into our next question. Indonesia is very focused on workforce development. There was a World Bank study, I believe in 2018, that predicted between 2015 and 2025, there would be a deficit of technical staff, a deficit of 9 million ICT staff here in Indonesia. And I know that there are lots of participants tonight who may think, gee, how could I get involved as a tech worker or cybersecurity? And maybe you could comment on ways in Indonesia for those who are interested in, doing a little bit more on cybersecurity. How could you get involved? Dr. Awal.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't think we deficit ICT staff. As I close with some healthcare community, they're growing faster and increase over time. So if we make a competition like a cyber attack competitions, a lot of young hackers join with us. So I see the bright future of the cybersecurity talent in Indonesia. And the thing is, we have to organize them, and we provide a lot of program to engage with them, to educate them to be a professional. So the thing is about the data. Indonesian government, also private sector in Indonesia, do not have a data related to the informal professional in the ICT sectors, because there are a lot of freelancer. They're not registered in the Minister of Worker or Labor. That's why they are not appear as a whole pictures of the number or the situation of the ICT skills. But my community, I surrounding a lot of digital talent that I do believe the ICT staff is surplus in the future in Indonesia.
Tamra, I think that it's important as we start to think about digital skills development in any country, that we think about digital skills very broadly and not think or bin cybersecurity as just an IT issue. And I also think that there needs to be a deliberate plan for reskilling a generation who didn't really grow up with these technologies, but as our different companies and services become more digitized, they're going to have to understand the digital risks and be able to mitigate those risks. So, I think that when at the universities, and I think that this is the case at Dr. Awal, that, when we're teaching computer science, we should also, and they're learning how to code, we actually reward our students on when it works, but we don't actually teach them of how to necessarily get all the vulnerabilities out of the code. And that would be more engineering principles that we need to bring to our computer science degrees. And so hardware and software has less flaws in the future. And that would be one key thing for digital skills development. As I had talked earlier in the month, when we also need attorneys and lawyers that are well trained and understand and how can migrate our laws from the analog age to the digital age. In the United States, when I worked for President Obama, we identified 80 laws that had to be updated for the digital age. And that's the case all around the world, whether it's data protection and privacy laws, or it's surveillance laws, or different areas that all need to be updated for telecommunications laws, all for the digital age. Also, we're talking about healthcare and telemedicine, and we have medical devices now that are going into our bodies that have to be well designed, and we have doctors who need to be able to understand how to use and interrogate those devices over the internet to diagnose us. So that every profession has a digital aspect to it. So we need to think about digital skills and digital awareness about those risks everywhere. And then, and so that everybody can participate and everybody can actually participate in risk mitigation.
Can I add something?
Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah. In the micro level, I find my university and other university the dark future of the social science. So, for example, as a lawyer, as a law lectures, the student is decreased. It's different with the computer science. The student is increased over time, year of years. They always increase. It means that the skill of the computer science, the information science, and the cybersecurity, also some university open the cybersecurity program will be increased too. But the data mentioned by Tamra is remind me that we have to take care about the numbers, because the numbers doesn't mean that the student is skillful. So we may need help from U.S. government to teach us also to give more education on the cybersecurity, because we may don't have any technology, but we have a lot of human resources and digital skill and digital talent.
Right.
There was actually a question related to how Indonesia could learn from the United States cyber. We are in the process of our election right now, but wondering, Melissa, do you want to take that one? What can Indonesia learn from the United States regarding cybersecurity with the elections?
So in the United States, we've spent the last 4 years raising awareness on the importance of election security, investing in new machines and processes to ensure that the electoral system was and is more secure. We ran contingency or emergency exercises so that if voting systems or areas went down or got knocked offline, how we would quickly restore them. We also really kind of created a overall collaborative, I guess, a government to government and private-public partnership. So it's not just the federal government that was involved in actually securing the election, but each of the state governments and governors we raised awareness on all of those things. So really recognizing that, I guess the biggest thing is to recognize is that one, it requires awareness. 2, it requires investment. 3, it requires really kind of preparation for that resilience. And then 4, I think maybe the most important is the narrative for any country should be that our democracy is strong and cannot be undermined through disinformation and propaganda. That we are going to vote because it is our democratic right, and we are going to choose our own governments. And so I think the biggest risk that any government and or society has is the amount of propaganda and disinformation that's trying to change the hearts and minds of the citizen versus their actual vote, because the vote is not being manipulated. It's the hearts and minds that are being manipulated.
Very well said. Thank you. And very timely. We're probably running into the end of our question and answer, but there is another simple question. I think that when we think about all the different passwords that we use, we've been told time and time again, good password practices, but it never hurts to remind everybody again, if you have multiple social media accounts that require different passwords, and of course it's difficult to remember every password, the question is, what is the best practice to keep your passwords safe and make it easy to remember? Would you save them all on your mobile phone? Is that how you would you consider that safe, or what do you recommend, Melissa?
I recommend using the password manager. And, I use Apple products. It says, Apple will say, do you want me to store your user account and password so that you don't have to remember it? Yes, do that for me. So that every time you log in, it just automatically knows. It doesn't have to be Apple. There are password managers. I highly recommend them. They're usually pretty secure. And that's the best way to do it, I think, for anybody. It's hard to remember. I probably have 100 passwords right now for the different online accounts that I have. So I use a password manager.
Okay, Dr. Awal, the next question is for you. How safe is mobile banking in Indonesia, where we use our phones? Let's see, do banking. Okay, so yeah, the question relates to mobile banking in Indonesia. And for Melissa, you've seen the number of different easy ways that Indonesians can pay for things. We have OVO, we have Gojek, we have lots of different ways to transfer money. I ordered a birthday banner for my daughter's birthday this weekend, and it was quite easy to go online, create an account, create the banner, and then pay from my Indonesian bank account. But how safe is that, Dr. Awal?
Thank you, Tamra. The mobile banking provided by the Indonesian banking company actually are mostly safe. The problem is in the users that they have to educate the users that very basic information, such as don't use the simple PIN numbers, don't use the information for the secret key contained as the private data that easy to be known by the other, like we use the number from our birthday date or our the number house is very easy to someone to predict the secret key. So the user is very important to be educated to have the strong password, like you said, and the other things actually is not only the banking number, but also financial technology platform also very growth in Indonesia. It's very growing in Indonesia, and a lot of people using that. And as a Melissa mentioned, if we don't really know the platform, we suggest to not using. And the financial authority service also announced several companies who got license to provide the financial technology, like a peer-to-peer lending, contain 150 companies. If you find the company outside of the list, so you don't use it, because your data can be stolen, and you may be a target for the online fraud.
Yeah, I think that the most, when you look at the overall financial platforms, there are different areas that are governing the security. So first is, as Dr. Awal said, the financial authority, whatever it is in any country, is granted a license for that platform to be able to move money. And that's the first, is like it has to go through a vetting aspect for the platform and that company. The second, and why is that? Because that company and the platform has to be able to monitor the transactions to comply with anti-money laundering laws that all of the global financial system agrees to, right? A certain threshold for a suspicious activity on a financial platform. The second governance area is the actual financial institutions themselves, the end bank that's actually having that transaction as the intermediary. The banks also need to ensure those platforms are secure and those transactions are real. One, security is important, because the security, if it's an insecure platform, you lose real money. And the second is if it's not a legitimate platform, and you're not securing the transaction, money laundering or illicit illegal activity that's happening on it. And then a third, I agree with Dr. Awal that the consumer really needs to be further educated about their devices and device security. We go and we naturally turn to things for convenience, and a lot of the financial technology sector and others, they're trying to make it very easy for the technology to be used. Consumer ease of use is like almost the most important functionality, but that doesn't mean that they don't also have a responsibility. The consumer actually needs to understand that channel, when you use your bank account, Tamra, is that when it goes online, that's all of your money, not just the same transaction. It's everything that is in your account is at risk if you do something silly or the platform's not secure. And that's what people need to understand. They think it's only that one transaction. It was $5, it was this amount. No, when you use your bank account, your entire money, everything in your bank account is at risk. And if people understood that, literally understood that, or that people were more aware of how often people do lose a lot of their money out of their bank account, then they would take more precautions and risk, because that's our livelihood, that's our life savings, that's everything.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I think we're at the end of the question and answer. So I'll move into the closing. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Dr. Awal, or are we ready to wrap up?
Yeah, I very enjoy to learn from Melissa. The presentation is very good to be read more and again. Because Indonesia also still on the process to strengthening the cybersecurity. We imagine that in the future we have the second Silicon Valley in Indonesia with a lot of digital talent and digital skill, also the technology. I hope that the collaboration between Indonesia and US goes well and can make the better future for human being, for society. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Awal. I'd also like to mention, one of the main things to do is to educate people on the importance of cybersecurity and our individual responsibility for our own cyber hygiene, but also for our family and for our company and friends and everyone around us. So first step is education. Being part of this presentation tonight, I hope that you took good notes and will go home and Google yourself. I actually did that recently and was surprised to see photos of my moving company moving my house. Luckily, I don't live there anymore, but you'll be surprised what you see. So keeping your passwords safe, as our presenters mentioned, being sure that you're not giving away personal information. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Paying attention to how you're linking your bank account. These are all very good tips. And really thinking about what you can do to keep yourself and your family safe in light of COVID. So please, like to give our speakers a round of applause. I would like to thank everybody for staying up past 8 p.m. I know it's a bit late, but this is a very important topic and we really appreciate your participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a great honor to be with you tonight.
Thank you so much, Melissa, Tamra, and at America.
Okay, thank you so much Ibu Tamra as our moderator for tonight, and also Ibu Melissa dan Bapak Dr. Awaludin for being our speakers for tonight's event. So earlier in this event, I asked you guys a question. Which one of these cyber attacks is the most common? Is it ransomware, phishing, DDoS attack, or malware? So which one is the answer? The answer is B, phishing. Congratulations to Muhammad Fauzan Zulkarnain from Facebook for answering correctly. Now, for those of you who would like to join our quiz next time, be sure to follow our event from the very beginning because that's when we share our questions. Now, for those of you who are wondering how can you develop an awesome idea at an awesome place like AdAmerica, it's really easy. You can just go to our website at www.adamerica.or.id, select Create a Program, and go to Collaborate with us. All proposals coming to us will be reviewed, and your event might be featured here soon. And while you're on our website, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter to get updates from us once a week, sent straight to your inbox. We won't spam you, we promise. And also don't forget to follow us on our social media for fun content and event updates. I hope you all have a great night and see you at the next AdAmerica TV event. Bye-bye, everybody.